Interesting. Okay, so where were we? We were still talking about Brandenburg. And then their fifth objective, and this one kind of throws a real curveball in their plans, is to take Tanzania all the way down here. So one of the things which Germany had is they did actually have a colony down in Tanzania. Tangiaka? Something like that. I don't remember exactly what the Germans call it. But yeah, I thought that would be a little bit interesting. It could potentially mean that we have a colonial Prussia, or it could just mean we have a Prussia who has imperial aspirations. I think it's going to be an interesting objective, that one anyway, because we have a lot of colonizers. So as much as I've been trying to add a lot of competition in Europe, I've also been trying to add a lot of competition in the colonies. And there are a lot of people who have either overlapping colonial aspirations or just big colonial aspirations. And there's only so much space in the entire world. So then we have... In fact, before we do this, I want to go through the nations real quick and have an idea of... Tanganyika, that's the one, of which alliances we have here. So let's just go to the diplomatic map mode real quick. We'll click on Aragon just to see who their friends are. So they have a PU with Naples. They start the Overlord of Naples. So it's going to be interesting to see if anyone tries to split Naples away. And he's also got an alliance with Castile. So one of the things which I was quite careful to do is there are no overlapping objectives for Iberia between these two powers. Because one of the things that I really enjoyed during the Aragon game that I did as a single player was keeping Castile alive. So while there are no overlapping things, there are no reasons for them to actually work together either. So it's kind of interesting that immediately we have an alliance jumping in over there. Then we've got Hamburg next up. Hamburg's goals are all about being the HRE. It was basically a choice. You can play as Lübeck or Hamburg. Not the HRE, the Hansa. And then your objective is to form the Hanseatic League. So immediately we've got an alliance with Mecklenburg, Verden, Cologne being player, and then also, that's also Cologne. And then he's also got the trade league led currently by Lübeck. One of his goals is to become the trade leader himself and have a trade league which is really quite large. So he's going to have to use trade cities to accomplish that particular feat. Then we've got Calico in France. France being a little bit fragmented at the moment. Going to have to, early on, do something about the English. And Calico currently allied with the Danes, which is not surprising. There's a lot of conflicting goals between England and Denmark. Poland over here. Not sure exactly how much help Poland would be in a war, but I guess if it's against a German state, then Poland could be. Venice. So he's bringing in some serious cash money. And then also Savoy. And Provence. Savoy and Provence. And immediately we have a player war. 31 days into the game, player war. So at the moment we have got Calico fighting against England, Denmark. Okay, so this is the thingy of Maine. Crap, that was quick. Yes, I quite agree. So, wow. What are the sides like in this, and are they bringing in anyone else? It's England, Ulster, Leinster, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, and Holstein versus... Oh, no, peace immediately. So England has immediately just given all of their territories to France. So this is clearly a deal that the two have worked out initially. So we may not see a hostile Anglo-French rivalry. They do have overlapping goals, however, so that could certainly... cause some strife in the future. But England clearly saying, not interested in the continent, have these provinces. Ordinarily, I try and sell those. I don't know if England has accepted money for that transfer. It doesn't look like it. England just wanted to give up the land. Unless England's actually building anything. He's building a couple of heavies. Maybe he did accept like 100 ducats. That's possible. So France immediately coming in with that, although England did keep Calais. So there is still going to be some strife between him and Burgundy. Right, let's go and take a look at the list again. Go back into diplomatic map mode. And then go to Bohemia, because I'm very curious who Bohemia has chosen to buddy up with. So immediately we've got an alliance between Bohemia and Saxony. And Silesia is actually a Bohemian vassal. I did not realise that. That's interesting. So quite a small alliance, but quite tight-packed, quite close together. I thought I heard another voice there, but I didn't. Then we have got Scotland. Who has Scotland managed to get an agreement with? I was kind of expecting Scotland and Denmark to start working together. Denmark has a lot of reasons to see England fall, and not very many to see Scotland fall. But Scotland does also want to get the islands north of the British Isles, Shetland, Faroe Islands, and Orkney. Falklands are in Argentina, or next to Argentina. So, Scotland currently allied only with Burgundy. That might be a little bit too small an alliance, we shall see, because both of them have very large nations who are both going to be gunning for them. I very much hope that Burgundy has got a few more friends than that. Scotland may not necessarily need them. And there we go. Scotland and England immediately at war. Who declared this? Probably England. English subjugation of Scotland. That is what I expected. So Scotland, Brabant, Burgundy, Flanders, Holland, Navarre, and the Isles versus England. England's coming in with 28,000 troops against 74,000. Naval advantage should be on England's side. Although the Burgundy Scottish side do have a lot of light ships as well. Are there any other player wars going on? No, just those. Hey, Whoop Styler. Who am I playing as? I'm not. I'm just commentating. So, immediately we've got the English trying to blockade the Scots, although the Scots fleet does seem to have escaped. That's the Dutch fleet. Where's the Scots navy? Have they lost it already? I do hope you've not lost it already, Scotland. That would be very careless. You should give your ships maps. They have 2 heavies in production, but no others currently available. This is why I really thought that Scotland would try to get an alliance with Denmark, because Denmark is the only nation that really has a navy that can go toe-to-toe with the Brits. And now if he had Scotland, Burgundy and Denmark all together, then that is a huge navy, and England should really start to feel quite scared. With just this, I'm not convinced. Scotland's not going to have a big enough army, and Britain or England should be able to blockade the Burgundians. So I'm not too hopeful about the Scottish chances here. It really does depend on whether Burgundy can get their forces into play, but considering most of the Burgundian strength at the moment is personal union AI nations, I'm not hopeful. The one thing that Burgundy could do is finance Scotland to fight this war. They can take Calais, which will give them some war score. Calais is a fort, and if a fort is taken, that is a healthy chunk of war score, especially because Britain doesn't have very many forts here. So, yeah, we shall see. 24,000 troops. He's got a decent amount of shock. 5 cavalry, which isn't terrible. But the English just have a huge army here, and that's a real problem for Scotland early on. Scotland, a little bit low on manpower. Britain... No, stop saying Britain. They're not Britain, they're England. England has a lot more manpower, a lot more money, although England is also losing cash, but definitely not at the rate that Scotland is. And Scotland's already got a looming disaster, although he seems to have just managed to clear that away. What was that? That may have been aristocratic coup? Yes, it was an aristocratic coup. Good that you got rid of that. Fleet basic rights from Aragon. And Portugal offering an alliance. This would be a very strong alliance for Scotland to have. I'm a little bit surprised that Portugal is offering an alliance to the Scots right now, because Portugal usually has an alliance with England. In this world, however, they do not. Portugal's got an alliance with Castile and Aragon. So it very much looks like we're not going to see an Iberian Thunderdome anytime soon. Instead, it's the Iberian Hogbox. Oh, big naval battle. So we have got 60 ships coming in against 18. Unfortunately, there are no heavies on this side. It's mostly transports against the 8 heavies from the English. And the English have the wooden wall doctrine active already. Scotland getting a lot of alliance offers. Portugal really trying to go, I want to help you, I want to help you, I want to help you. And then the Mamluks as well. But Scotland not currently accepting anything from any of those other players. English Navy is going to be very difficult to defeat, especially here on the coastline. I mean, I suspect that the majority of that fleet that just attacked was actually AI, just trying to force a crossing, but not enough. West March is pretty defensible. Have they used the defensiveness edict? They have not. They only have the 10%, mostly from the hills. If they enacted the defensiveness edict, then they would be able to hold that for even longer, because that's kind of a critical junction. If the West Marches falls, then Scotland pretty much becomes open. Lothian not really being fortified well enough. Is Castile in the war as well? Aragon is. Mamelukes are, Portugal are. So England may well be up against it now. Now that a lot of the other large nations in the world clearly don't want to see England growing too strong. So we have the whole of Iberia. That's a lot of combined fleet power coming in. And now England still has... No, England's got Denmark on their side. Which is the opposite of what I was expecting to have happen, which is interesting. So these guys do have an awful lot of transports, but no real combat. They really need to build up their naval combat capacity. Do we have any ships being built by Castile? No. What about Aragon? Light ships, weirdly. And then Portugal? Nothing. Who else is in this war? Denmark, Burgundy, Portugal, Naples, Mamelukes, Castile and England. Nope, it's just the same nations. Well, this is definitely one hell of an opener. It's just going to be a question about whether these guys can get over there or not. Because there's a lot of continental power here, but they're fighting England. They need to force a landing against England. I mean, what they should probably do is ignore the English Channel. That's going to be guarded by everyone. They should load up a bunch of troops and then go around. Because they can all see the sea zone here. And that's not going to be guarded, and then basically pop into Scotland. And because Scotland is an ally in the war, they can just land immediately in one of the ports, which makes it very difficult to intercept reinforcements coming in. Unfortunately, it looks like what they tried to do was force a crossing across the English Channel, which is where the English Navy is going to be sitting. Although now that they have Norway and Scotland in, the reason I thought that Denmark and Scotland would be a good ally is because Norway actually starts off with a surprisingly strong navy. They are one of the other nations that starts out with quite a few heavy ships. So if you bring in Denmark's just fleet strength, they have a lot of boats, and then Norway's heavies, combined with Scotland's, then you can usually rival, if not directly counter, the English. But unfortunately, it looks like the anti-English coalition is just throwing ships at the enemy. I mean, most of them will be the Burgundian miners, but I'm really hoping to see the Iberians just sail out wide and then drop troops in the north of Scotland and push south. But time is a ticking against them. Do we see any troops starting to form? Nope. Castile is currently having an uprising and also a looming disaster. They are looking towards a aristocratic coup. Aragon doesn't seem to be moving their troops out just yet. Does Aragon have any galleys? They have a couple. Most of them owned by Mamelukes. In fact, Aragon only has 2. I have a feeling that that early naval battle was a bad one. And here comes Norway. Another reason you want Denmark on your side is they actually ship troops out. Yeah, so we might... Well, we're certainly seeing Norway appearing. That's going to be causing problems because of the forts down here in the south. And also the Norwegian fleet could see and block Iberian reinforcement. Just double checking to see if there's any other wars going on. There's a couple of AI wars. We'll go through those in good time. So Holland currently fighting against the Holstein fleet and losing. Norway coming in completely uncontested. I mean, Scotland really kind of wants to see that coming in. Inverness. When do they arrive? They arrive on the 19th of July. That's in today. So these guys are too late. If they had attacked while they had the little lock on, they would have been forced to land, and that's a -2 combat right there. So Scotland reacting really quite slow to that, unfortunately. They're probably focused on either talking to their allies and trying to coordinate some kind of response. Oh, here comes a Mameluke fleet. 3 lights, 8 galleys, and 12 transports. Not actually carrying any troops. So it will be very interesting to see whether these guys actually bring in some forces or not. Because right now, it kind of looks like they're just trying to group their forces. We've got Mamelukes actually in Iberia at present. -7% on that fort, and Ulster now protecting the northern coast. That's Kaiser saying. Who's Kaiser? Burgundy? Yes. I guess he's screaming for them to actually launch the attack or something? I don't know. I can't actually see chat when it's popped up and gone past. So how is Scotland's financial situation? This is actually where I'm the most worried. Scotland's armies are actually fairly competent and can fight pretty hard, simply because Scotland starts with that +1 land leader shock, which means their generals are generally going to be better than the English ones. But they don't have the finances to keep the money up. Burgundy, faithful allies requesting your aid against France. This is what I was worried about. Having Burgundy as an ally for Scotland is a weird one, because that's going to mean that France isn't going to want the Grand Alliance, or the Old Alliance. So France and Burgundy now at war. France calling in Corfu, Mazovia, Milan, Montferrat, Naxos, Poland, Savoy, and Venice versus Burgundy, Austria, Brabant, Castile, Flanders, Holland, Navarre, Scotland has joined. So we do have a land war now. We've got Castile, we have Austria, we have Burgundy versus France, Venice, and Poland. So this is really quite a mixed up war as well. If we just go over to the diplomatic map mode, we can see the powers involved in that. This is Poland-Lithuania, although this is only allied to Lithuania, I believe. This is not going to be... Oh no, it's a personal union already. Crikey, that was quick. Okay, interesting. And yeah. Aragon has also joined, so the Iberians are starting to really throw their weight about a bit here. But it's going to be very interesting to see if anything comes of it, and unfortunately I think that this means that Scotland now stands alone. They have, or their allies have far too many other problems. The invasion of Scotland going in pretty quickly. Is this a war that... No, this is a war that Burgundy started. The Burgundian conquest of Troyes. France is the defender here. Interesting. So Burgundy, despite being nominally in the war on Scotland's side against England, decided, you know what? Don't care. I wonder what that's going to mean for his reputation, because people are going to see this and say, what did you actually do to try and help Scotland? Alliance coming in from Florence. Florence played by Val. So Florence trying to play Kingmaker here, probably for a chance to stab a little bit at Venice. And I need some tea. Too many wars makes one thirsty. So it's time for tea. So kind of similar to my rule for Iberia, where I didn't try to make Aragon and Castile too aggressive towards each other. I had a similar policy for Burgundy and France. They don't have very many conflicting goals, because I kind of thought if that's going to happen, it's going to happen naturally. Burgundy is more about the Netherlands. There's going to be a lot more conflict between Burgundy and Holland, and seeing as the Holland player isn't here today, problems. And yes, I know I should be watching fighting. That fort still hasn't fallen. Like, so far, the MVP of this session is the Fort of West Marches. Like, it is holding out strong. It's a tough cookie to crack, apparently. I guess that's because there's no artillery yet. Artillery is not a thing. It's too early. And Pomerania is currently being occupied by Poland and Brandenburg. So that looks like the Poles and the Brandenburg are currently allied. It doesn't look like there's any wars or fighting going on here. There's definitely wars going on, but no fighting going on down there. Look at all the blue flames. This is a crazy game so far. Utterly bonkers. It's kind of cool. Is today Dunk on England Day? It certainly appears that way, doesn't it? I just realised there's absolutely no sound coming through. Did I forget to... Oh, I forgot to unmute it. Whoops! The nation of Florence is requesting your aid against the Pope. So Florence got their alliance with France just in time for the Pope to come knocking at the door. France has joined the war. And this is going to be... another big one. The Papal States versus Florence, France, Lithuania, Milan, Poland. I have a feeling that Florence's allies here are too great. Now, one question I do have, I'm not going to say too much about this, I just want to double check something that doesn't seem to be true. Pizza Man, I surrender. That is Naples. Naples is saying I surrender to whom? Not sure. France just fought a battle against Burgundy, and Burgundy was sent packing. Sorry, I did not see that in time. But we have the Mamelukes coming in the south. We have Aragon also in the south, but the Burgundians being sent home. Meanwhile, Westmarch has finally fallen. We've got Norway currently occupying Lothian. We have the Scottish army, having clearly fought a battle as well, being sent off to Orkney. But they may well get trapped there. If they lose Sunderland, or Sutherland, then that's going to be a bad time for everyone, especially if they're Scottish. Old Gentleman, thank you very much for the follow. And EDK5 Cornelia, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the channel. So the Burgundians replenishing in the centre here. They have one province in, which means the French cannot actually see where the Burgundian forces are at the moment, which is pretty wise. And they are being protected by Auxerre anyway. The French being very defensive here, pretty content to let the enemies just come in and start fighting. Although both of these forts look like they are in danger of falling, so they really need to go and start lifting those sieges, because these are excellent defensive positions. Remember, if you have the fort on your side and you attack it, then you get the defensive bonuses. It's the attacker who counts as the attacker, even though they are technically defending in that situation. France currently fighting against Aragon. That's 15 light ships versus 10 light ships. Venice actually bringing in the admiral here. No galleys. A complete lack of galleys. Oh no, here come some galleys. And Aragon looks like it's going to be sent packing. Aragon losing too many ships is not good for them. Naples, meanwhile, fighting against Savoy. Naples coming out the handy victor there. We do still have a couple more Aragonese fleets over on the side, but not really where they're going to be very useful. We have papal armies coming in and fighting against the Lithuanians. Let's take a look at this. This is 2.7 morale versus 2.6. It's so early in the game that it's only going to be like the initial starting ideas which will affect things. So some nations are going to be a bit stronger at this point, like Scotland, because of their shock advantage. Milan, I think, is another one that starts with a morale bonus. But generally, armies are actually going to be kind of equal. It's going to depend a lot on territory and where you choose to fight, which is why forts in this era are so important. And then also just bringing more numbers and cavalry. Is AI playing Florence? No. Machiavelli is playing as Florence, also known as Val. I love that name, Machiavelli. It's great. It's clever. Okay, so we have Aragon attacking into Quercy, which is actually woodland. I'm not sure that he realised there's a French army right here. These guys are locked in. The French coming in a little bit late, not sending all of their troops in. We have some Portuguese just coming to watch the fight. Aragon losing a lot of troops, so this is why I was saying that territory is so important. 3,000 cavalry versus 7,000. France is just going to smash Aragon here. Like, cavalry is king. So strong compared to infantry at the moment. Scotland, very much looking worse for wear at the moment. Denmark taking a couple of territories. I wonder if they'll flip that to England or whether this is going to be Denmark's opportunity to get some free real estate in Scotland. I think maybe we'll need to start referring to Scotland as Northern England soon.